There is an epidemic secretly depriving the youth and many in their middle age the essence of quality life. This is the menace of drug abuse and drug misuse. And that is what today's edition of Better You Today will be centered on. An expert is on set to explain the nexus, differences, and other salient facts regarding drug abuse and drug misuse. My name is Yetunde Jayola. Glad to be your anchor on the program. Let's go on a short break. Better You resumes shortly.
People from the past. They talk about how the society, neighbors help each other to raise kids, and now it's all about people focusing on themselves. Children of age 5, 6, 7, they are indulging in selling these bad drugs, which is so sad. Sometimes I get scared. I have younger ones that are growing. The society now is so difficult.
Weed, of course, is a bad drug. It's a drug that is not accepted by our country. So smoking it privately alone is very bad. And for you again, now smoking it in public is way too absurd and is the kind of thing that shouldn't be practiced in the society. Abusing drugs is something that we need to stay away from as youth and even as adults. The person I know that abused drugs, I can tell you he was abnormal for not less than 48 hours because he used it overdosed, and his mental capacity was not able to carry it. So it makes him to, misbehaved.
The youth, if they no gauge themselves in smoking Indian hemp, then we gauge themselves is taking drugs, different kind of drugs, and most of them don't know the effect of it. Some we even take. One other day in the streets, one guy take it. Before you know it, with empty stomach, before you know it, he started misbehaving. Then hold him down and feed him with red oil. So it's not funny.
From available research, is unhealthy for the members of the public, because from the things I've read, secondary smokers are even prone to have more problem than the primary smokers. Smoking in the public by youths or even if anybody, it should be discouraged. So I know few youths that are taking marijuana. I confronted 3 of them, talking to them, trying to see how I would dissuade them from going on with that kind of lifestyle, hoping that going forward I will be able to prevail on them to drop it.
Addiction is not a choice, it is a disease. Like our respondent, Mr. Stephen Achizia, stakeholders should come up with innovative solutions towards addressing the challenges involved in drug abuse and drug misuse. Up next is a mini documentary. Don't go anywhere.
According to the National Bureau of Statistics, the past year prevalence of drug abuse in Nigeria is 14.4%. That is 14.3 million people aged between 15 and 64 years. The extent of drug abuse in Nigeria is comparatively high when compared with the 2016 global annual prevalence of drug abuse of 5.6% among the adult population. Sadly, prevalence is noticed among the productive sector of the economy. This is an unpleasant statistic that calls for concern and challenges stakeholders to leave no stone unturned in reducing menace of drug abuse and drug misuse to the barest minimum. Experts have suggested the entrenchment of 5 rights aimed at preventing the scourge of drug abuse and drug misuse. For any particular drug, the right patient must be identified. Having identified that, the right dose of right drug is of utmost essence. Similarly, the right time to administer the drug in question is crucial, time or times of the day. And finally, the right route of administration of the drug. Good control of prescription drug. Pharmacies and the regulatory bodies are required to up their ante in this regard. It is a worthy or worthwhile cause, as it is estimated by experts that hourly 24 people die as an aftermath of drug abuse or misuse. 595 people are estimated to die daily, while yearly projection amounts to 2.6 million people. Shun drug abuse. Seek professional help in a hospital or clinic in case of any emergency. Do not rely on self-medication and self-prescription, and be confident to say no to drug abuse, even if it's offered by a friend.
In the words of Mahatma Gandhi, every word he acts is difficult. Ascent is always difficult. Descent is easy and often slippery. Exerting efforts to stem the tide of the myriad of challenges is a step in the right direction. We now warmly welcome Dr. Simon Ogenyi to elucidate further on drug abuse and drug misuse. Thank you for staying tuned.
Drug abuse refers to taking illegal drugs or prescription drugs or over-the-counter drugs without an adequate prescription from a doctor, or taking it in excess of the dose that has been prescribed for an individual, or taking it for a reason outside the purpose for which the drug was actually made. It also involves other substances beyond just drugs. On the other hand, drug misuse have been defined as any use of drug other than the laid down legal or medical guidelines for the use of that drug. If you look closely, they look or sound similar. However, there's a difference between them. The similarities in the sense that one can take a particular drug, and depending on a factor I'm going to talk about, that could be drug abuse and that could also be drug misuse. For example, somebody can actually take cough syrup, and we could term it as drug abuse or drug misuse. If, for example, someone has a cough and goes to the office of the doctor and gets a prescription for a cough syrup, and the person takes the cough syrup for the purpose of curing the cough, that would be appropriate. However, if the doctor says, take this twice a day, but because of the severity of the cough, the patient thinks it is okay to increase it, and the patient takes it about 7 times in a day. Now, the intention of that patient is to get well. However, the patient has exceeded the dose. The patient got a prescription for that drug, is taking that drug but in an inappropriate dose or manner. That is drug misuse. You could have another individual that does not have cough, and the person would want to actually take the cough syrup. The essence why the person wants to take that cough syrup is to get the euphoric feeling from a side effect of one of the constituents of, let's say, a codeine containing cough syrup. Now, that person is actually doing what we call drug abuse. So you see a scenario where two individuals are taking cough syrup. One is likened to be drug misuse, while the other is likened to be drug abuse. And the difference between drug abuse and drug misuse is in the intent of the patient or the person that is actually using that drug. If the intent is to gain the euphoria, or in quote, getting high, that comes with actually taking a particular drug, then that is drug abuse. But if you are talking about, if the intent is not actually to gain a euphoria, but to get well, but in an inappropriate manner, that is drug misuse. So there could be areas where they overlap, but there's a distinct difference between drug abuse and drug misuse. One of the major causes of drug abuse in the society is peer pressure. Sometimes people see their friends abusing a particular drug, and they want to actually go and use the same kind of drug. There are also experimental curiosity and people that have this tendency to try out new things. Those people that have such tendencies could actually abuse drugs. Another reason could be victims of physical and sexual abuse. Victims like that tend to fall back to abusing drugs as a coping mechanism as a result of the effect of that kind of devastating experience. Mental conditions such as depression and other conditions such as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, all this anxiety could also push people towards abusing drugs. People who come from broken homes, in which there are always problems at home, also are pushed towards abusing drugs as a coping mechanism. Poverty is one of the pushing causes to abuse drugs, and ignorance is also one very key thing that we should not shy away from. Some people are not even aware that it is possible to abuse or misuse the routine drugs that you see around. Others would be having normal flu. They could be having flu, catarrh, cough, and they will say that is the sign of malaria for them. And they are hard and fast to tell you that it is malaria, and as a result of that, they will take anti-malarials for it. Self-diagnosing themselves, self-prescribing the drugs without recourse to seeking professional help in situations like that. The symptoms and signs of drug abuse depends heavily on the type of drug that is being abused. It would come as a side effect to that drug or the manifestation of taking a particular drug. So there's no one particular symptom and sign that envelopes all the whole drugs that are being abused today. However, a few would include, but not limited to, having someone with a staggering gait. You would know that this person may have an alcohol intoxication. Somebody that may be having incoherent speech, otherwise normal. You would know that this person may have taken something out of the ordinary. Then there are people that ordinarily, they are quiet. All of a sudden, they become bold, aggressive, violent. You will get to know that it is not normal for this person to actually be behaving this way. There are others that would be excessively sleepy as a result of abusing especially sedatives and anxiolytics. There are some of the classes of drugs that are being abused today. There are people that also have irrational or inappropriate attitudes towards other people. Ordinarily, you can vouch for the behavior of this person on a good day. Then all of a sudden, you see this person approaching other people, trying to touch them inappropriately. you would know that this guy is acting out of the ordinary. That could be a manifestation that he's actually under the influence of a particular medication. You could also see them excessively energetic. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some people out there that naturally are athletic and very energetic. Sometimes they find it difficult to sleep, especially people that abuse caffeine. And you could also have people who have become dependent or tolerant on drugs. They cannot do without taking that particular drug. If they do, you could start seeing their hands shaking. They could develop seizures as a result of not taking that. They are always looking for those drugs. Some of these individuals could begin to waste. They would have a wasted look. That is, they would slim down, they would lose weight, and you would see them looking kachesic. Those kind of people, you would know that yes, they really have, instead of to wake up in the morning and eat, they want to wake up in the morning and smoke. Abusing drugs generally depresses the immune system. There are most drugs that they take that depress the immune system. That gives grounds for other opportunistic infections to set in. They could get other infections from sharing needles, and the manifestation of such individual will no longer be just the drug abuse, but the illness that they actually got from sharing of the needles and sharps. Depression is one very key thing to look out for. People who abuse drugs can easily get depressed. They could get heart attacks. It's one of the things that they could get. And the extreme of it is that they could actually die. The effect, we'll take the effect on the victims, the effect on the family, and then we'll extend it to the effect on the society. One key effect is the fact that they could easily get depressed. It can push them to depression. They could start having suicidal thoughts and tendencies with hallucinations and a whole lot of other mental disorders. It could distort their sleep cycle. They could either find it difficult going to sleep, or they could find themselves sleeping extensively for long periods of time, easily. They could have problems socializing. They always want to find people who relate with their group. You know, people who smoke, people who abuse drugs. They always want to look for that particular cycle. They are not interested in mixing with the other crowd that they feel would be judgmental to them. They develop this low self-esteem. They feel less than their peers. They feel less than other people because they tend to judge themselves for abusing drugs, but also realize that they cannot stop it. Dependency. It's one very key strong effect on the victims of drug abuse. They could be so dependent that they could go to the extremes just to get the next supply of their drugs. Some of these drugs are steroids that would depress the immune system. Some of them, the route of administration of these drugs would be the gateway through which they would actually get this infection. And every other disease that will be associated with the transmission process is perfectly en route for them to actually get. And they will suffer the consequences of the diseases that will come afterwards. And ultimately, death. Now, the effect on the family includes the financial burden. Imagine having someone who is a son, a daughter, a father, a mother that is an addict, with the family trying to come in to save this person, to salvage the situation. It will cost the family. When you also talk about the social problem, there is a stigma that will be attached on the family. When it comes to the adhesive nature of the family, intra-family relationship, it could also put a strain on the relationships of those families. And the effect on the society and the government at large. Most of these people would form a pool of those that are homeless. And then the government now have the added responsibility of entertaining miscreants that are actually on the streets, not just because of financial problem, but because of the fact that they are addicts. The violence on the society, it's something that it's an effect, a negative effect on the society, because accident, these people when they go to drive, they cause unnecessary accidents for other road users. Driving under the influence could portend a whole lot of danger on the society. It's an added burden on the government financially. If you look at the money that is going into trying to control these illicit substances and regulate the other prescription drugs, you get to see that a whole lot could have been done developing other economical and beneficial aspects. In preventing the abuse of drug, information is very much necessary. So patient education is very much key. And there was a need to scale up the awareness of drug abuse and drug misuse. And the ways to scale up the awareness, to build patient information or the society's information about this, is to utilize the mass media, having television shows on this, radio programs on this, printing flyers and leaflets on this, organizing symposiums, seminars, going to the marketplaces to actually educate them on some of these, having aspects or portions of the newspapers outlined to actually do this. We all have our role to play at different levels in the fight against drug abuse, and we should all join our hands to actually make the country a better place, free from drug abuse.
Sincere appreciation to Dr. Simon Ongeyi for his deep insights, and to you for keeping faith with our program. Next on our menu are important tips to help curtail or reverse the obstacles encountered in the drug menace. According to Steve Maraboli, incredible change happens in your life when you decide to take control of what you do not have power over, instead of craving control over what you don't. Taking charge of our lives and seeking help when necessary are sure ways of stemming the tide of drug abuse and drug misuse. This is where we draw the curtains on today's edition of Better You Today. Remember, you can view this as well as previous episodes of the program on our YouTube page displayed on your screen. My name is Yetunde Jayola. In the words of Mahatma Gandhi, strength does not come from physical capacity. It comes from an indomitable will. Bye for now and see you some other time.